If you have a glitch in the Matrix story you want to share with the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the big button to send it my way. And of course, thank you. Hey Raven, BigMack here again. This will be the second story that I've submitted. I love your podcast, and I've been listening for about almost a year now, and all of your stories make me feel like I'm not crazy, like my sister always claims. But that's a few stories for another time. I want to thank you for this podcast, because if I didn't find you, I would probably start believing my sister. Anyway, this is something that happened to me just now. I'm not sure if it could be considered a glitch or not, but it kind of caught me off guard anyway, just like most glitches that happened for me throughout my life. So, today is Saturday, March 8th. It's currently now 1:43 p.m. So, let's go back about 15 minutes. I was sitting in the kitchen on my phone looking through my Snapchat memories for today. After you finish for the day, some random pop-ups. If you have Snapchat, you know what I'm talking about. So between 1:28 to 1:35, I finished with the memories for the day, and a few randoms came up next. As I tapped through them, I looked at a picture of my two kids together from Halloween of 2024. My 11-year-old is a huge anime fan, and she was Naruto. My 5-year-old son, who is into anything new at the time, was Montgomery Gator, or Monty, from the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I looked at the picture for about a minute or so, and swiped off Snapchat, and then looked at the time, which was now 1:37. As soon as I sat my phone on the table, my daughter walks around the corner into the kitchen, in none other than her Naruto costume from this previous Halloween. I was confused, but also found it a bit funny, but just caught off guard a bit by the whole thing. I kind of laughed as I told her, "This is crazy. You know, I was just on Snapchat looking at my memories. Hold on, let me show you." And I pull up her picture with her brother to show her, and she laughs as well. She just said, "Wow," unenthusiastically, might I add, and then proceeded with, "Can you button this for me?" I laugh again and say yes as I reach to snap her Velcro patches into place, and when I finish, she walks away unbothered. I guess she wasn't too much moved by the situation like I was, but I just immediately thought, what a weird glitch. I didn't ask her what she thought of it, and maybe I should have, but she knows that I watch her Glitch in the Matrix playlist daily. Well, thank you. So she is kind of familiar with it, and I'm pretty sure she already knew what I was thinking. Plus, she will hear something in one of your videos as I'm listening, and she says, "Mama, something like that happened to me," and try to explain it. I can submit some of her stories if you'd like. Sure, I'd appreciate that. But I just wanted to know if something like this has happened to someone else before. I'm not sure if it's considered a glitch, or seeing into the near future a few minutes, or what to consider it. I believe it would be some sort of synchronicity. It felt like just one of my normal glitches that I've experienced throughout my life. Can anyone help explain it, where I can possibly understand what just happened? But I'm gonna go eat now while I listen to your podcast. Hi, Raven. I've been a listener for some months now, and I really like your stories. Today, for the first time since my last glitch a few years ago, I had another glitch experience. I never sent that story in, maybe someday. A month ago, I started helping at a school for a few hours once in a while. This week was actually my 4th time in and around this building. Before that, I never saw this school, only in pictures that I looked at a little before I started helping there. The school is based in a very old building. Important to this story is that I'm a wheelchair user, and the school building is not really accessible because it's so old. To get into the building is quite a hustle for me, since you need to take a few steps of stairs to the front door. The lack of accessibility could have been the choice for me not to help there, but I can still take a few steps. It costs me a lot of energy, and I need to ask people for help to carry my wheelchair inside, but since I like this place a lot, and I just need to be in one part of the school that is accessible to roll around once you're inside, I decided to give it a try since I like the school a lot, and the people are extremely nice. They genuinely have zero problems with helping me and love when I'm there. It's worth the hustle, the extra energy, and needing to rely on others for a bit. They told me they're thinking about making the school more accessible, though. Also, because someone else might need it in one day, and accessibility helps everyone. And they really want to do that, so no worries, but that's not the point of the story. This means that when I arrive, it always takes a few minutes for someone to see me, so I can ask them to carry my wheelchair inside. The front door has windows in it, and since the part they can look through outside is so small, because the rest is blurry, it always takes a little time. This means that I've stared at the front door longer than any person would normally do, waiting for someone to see me. And seeing their shadows behind the door, but them not seeing me so fast from the inside. Once I'm seen, mostly because someone goes outside, someone helps me with carrying my chair in, and I take those few steps up the little stairs. So, when I arrived at school this week, the first thing I noticed was the new front door. It was this high-quality plastic material that is used a lot in my country for doors and windows. Even when it's plastic, it still looks very good. Also, on old buildings. But it's clearly modern and plastic. It has the same dark green color as the old door, and 9 clear windows that would take up almost all the space on the door, so I could look right into the hallway with 100% clear view. I thought to myself, wow, that looks good. Modern, but still very pretty with the old building. And now I can see people inside, and they can see me much better when I'm waiting. How convenient. So, once I was inside, I said to the staff member who helped me in something along the lines of how I liked the new door. This woman looked at me very confused and said, "We don't have a new door." Confused, I said that I remembered an old-style wooden door that was also very old and where you could peek through the top windows at face height of an adult. And that the rest of the windows were blurry. You would see some blurry people standing on the other side. She told me that the wooden old door I described had been there, even pointing out that it was so old and almost fell apart, but said that it was replaced a little over a year ago together when all the windows in the school were replaced with the same plastic material. This made me really confused, since I only had been there this week for the 4th time. Once for introduction, once to work with someone else to get an idea of what was expected of me and how things work, and the first time coming to help by myself, and the 4th time was this week. All 3 times before had been this year, with the last visit just 1 month ago. She suggested that maybe I had seen the old door in pictures and that's what I had in my mind. So I let it rest with her, not wanting to make myself look like a crazy person. But the point is that a month ago I had to open the front door for one of the kids. She had been waving by the window from a room next to the front door to signal me to open it, because someone had locked it. I remember opening it, while standing up by the door for the first time, and looking down at her peeking through the top window before I opened the door. I remember I intentionally decided to open the door while standing up, because I wanted to know how clearly you could look outside from the top windows. I had this interest because I had this feeling for myself that it felt kind of unsafe that you couldn't see from the inside who was at the front door. So, in this moment, I figure out that if you stand very close to the window and kind of peek through, you could see someone clearer, and in way more detail. I remember this peeking down vividly and why I did it. I already knew it was her. That day, I took a good look at the normal windows and came to the conclusion that those were still the same as all the last times. These were actually plastic green windows that must have been replaced a bit more than a year ago. I decided to ask 2 other people. I was introduced to this teacher that told me he was also half handyman of the school. So I asked him if the door was new. He told me the exact same thing. The door was not new. It was replaced a little over a year ago. I also asked one of the kids. They didn't really pay attention to the door, but thought nothing was different. Only with an old picture pointing out he remembered the window foil that was on that door, but from longer ago. I was really confused, because I was 100% sure the door I knew was from wood, and it didn't have windows where you could look through, except the part at eye level to peek through. So, obviously, I looked it up on Street View, and in picture form of the school. I found 2 versions of the old wooden door. Both have the same 9 windows in the same place as the new plastic door has. One of the pictures is very old and from when they just opened this location almost 10 years ago. This door is the old wooden green door that has this old style glass that is a little tinted brown that's shaped in waves. The waves make this effect that the person on the other side of the door looks very strange. But if you stood very close to it, the person would become more clear. Or, when you put your eyes close to the glass, you can look through it. I'm not even sure if you can still buy this glass nowadays. It's such an old style. All 9 windows in the door had this glass. Now, the newer old wooden door is the door that I remember. It's the exact same door, but it has the same special wavy glass in the top 3 windows, and normal glass in the other 6 windows. But this normal glass is covered with this matte foil so people can't look in, or you can't look out. Also, note, if you stand close, you can't look through it. This foil makes people look blurry behind it, but you can see their shapes and the color of their clothes clearer the closer they get. The way I remembered people standing blurrily behind the door when I waited outside. So, what door did I see? Well, wasn't it for the moment a month ago where I opened the door for the kid looking very close by to peek through the window to see her? I would have just thought that I misremembered. That the door must have been plastic all along, even though I clearly remember a wooden door. They must have just taken the foil off the door windows and I misremembered peeking through the top glass because it had just clear view all along. So no peeking, just looking. But I know that I have seen the old wooden door. I remember that exact door. The door that was removed a bit over a year ago. Because it was so old that it almost fell apart. The paint chipped off the wood. And most importantly, I remember peeking at the kid and why I did that, even though I knew it was her. Now, I'm open to myself that I might be misremembering something about the top windows. That they might have been clear normal glass at the time I was there, but then the reason why I opened it while standing, because I wanted to check the safety, doesn't stand on anything anymore, because I would have known that you could just see the people outside perfectly by looking through the top windows. There would have been no need to check that. But one thing is sure, the door itself that I have seen all those times was made of wood, and it was old. As old looking as the building. If you would imagine some window foil on the new plastic door with the idea they just removed the foil in between this week and last month, there is no way that you wouldn't see the difference between a new modern plastic door in an old building and an old style door that is very old and made from wood. The green paint was chipping off. The plastic door has no paint. The material itself is green. But they didn't take the foil off. The old wooden door had foil. The door that was replaced over a year ago. So, now the school has this new plastic door with windows you look through with the clearest view, that you can imagine. And apparently it's been this way for well over a year. It's the weirdest feeling. Hi, Raven. I find it really interesting that there seems to be a subgenre of glitches that start with, I was thinking, wouldn't it be funny if, or, for some reason I thought that X would happen and then it did. Well, here's mine. I was making a sandwich for lunch one day and warmed it in the microwave. I realized after doing that I should be a little less messy and put it on a plate. When I grabbed a plate out of the cupboard, I had the thought, imagine if this just split in half. Why I had such a random thought, I don't know. It's part of a set of plates that I've had for years and none have ever broken. I put it on the counter and placed my lunch onto it. The next thing I know, I hear a cracking noise, and the plate splits down the middle. Now, I know that putting hot food on a cold plate could shock the material, but honestly, the sandwich was not hot, just warmed. Literally 30 seconds. And yes, the plate was microwave and dishwasher safe, so it shouldn't have literally cracked under pressure. I told a couple of friends, and we've since joked that I better be careful about what I manifest. Yes, I better focus on positive thoughts. You're traveling through a different dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. Rod Serling's introduction to the Twilight Zone. Of course, the Twilight Zone was fiction. I, along with many others, wondered where Rod Serling got his ideas. Is it possible he experienced another dimension? Did he write fiction, or were his experiences fictionalized? This is a true story. In 1999, my mother drew up a trust and specified that I was the beneficiary, but a third party was to act as trustee by court order. As a result, I didn't have access to her estate. She left cash in a safe deposit box. I was intimately familiar with this box as I had handled my mother's affairs before she died. After 14 years, the remainder of the trust, along with the box, were given to me again by court order. The box contained something I didn't remember. 20 gold coins. All 1 ounce pure gold. No, not silver, but gold, which is currently selling at $2,800 per ounce. I held them and stared in awe, but really, how could I forget? It seemed impossible. But there they were. Minted by the US Treasury, dated 2015. The thing is, my mother died in 2010. She couldn't have purchased them. The only person who had access was the trustee. Did she put 20 gold coins in the box? No, she did not. So to sum up, my mother died in 2010. The coins were minted in 2015. They were kept in a safe deposit box, and I didn't have access to this box. Okay. So, I would like to bring up a few things real quick. This has to do with abusive exes, illegal drugs, driving under the influence, and guns. So, if that is a problem for you, please feel free to skip this one. I am a 31-year-old woman, and this story happened to me in 2020. I met Brittany, fake name, on Facebook dating in December of 2019 or January of 2020. That's enough of a red flag already. They let me know at the time that they identified as a woman, but they hadn't fully transitioned. This happened in Illinois, and Brittany is from Iowa. Marijuana is legal in Illinois for recreational use as of 2020. I'll skip over most of the story, but she moved in. The apartment ghosts made it known that they didn't like her, different story. She got me kicked out because she was yelling at her video games all night when there was a noise ordinance, and we were temporarily staying in a motel 4 hours away on my dime because I'm the only one of us with income. It was after July 16th. Brittany came into the hotel room yelling at me because she needs to go help a guy in town, about 20 minutes away. It was definitely a dealer, and I was refusing to go because I had a bad feeling about it. She was clearly drunk and high as usual. She never drove sober. I said that my head hurt and that I wouldn't be able to go until tomorrow, and she said that I always make it about myself. Yada yada yada. You know, typical narcissist stuff. She huffed and puffed into our neighbor George's hotel room to complain about me, and I tried to think of an out, but I couldn't. So I went to sleep. I was awoken by my alarm at 5 a.m. the next day, and I'm getting ready to go. Myself, Brittany, and one of her friends who knew where to get the drugs were in the car. We drove for about 20 minutes to the neighboring town. We pulled up to the house that I can still vividly remember. Brittany was trying to pressure me into going inside, and I said no, because I was doing my best to nap in the back seat. I had a really bad gut feeling, so I was just fake sleeping. Brittany and that other guy went into the house for about 15 minutes, and that feeling started getting stronger. 1 minute and 51 seconds later exactly, I heard a loud popping noise and I realized it was gunfire. Brittany and her friend came running out of the house, and I saw Brittany trying to use the car as a shield. Of course, I was in front of her. The friend Brittany brought with us took off running, and Brittany tried to get into the car but was unable to because I had locked it due to the bad feeling that I'd had. And suddenly, I just felt my soul leaving my body, and I could see the car from above. I looked into the car and realized I had been shot. I remember freaking out for a few minutes, and then it all went dark, and I saw a bright light. I tried to go away from it because I always heard "don't go to the light," and a familiar presence pulled me in, and suddenly I realized that I was where I needed to be, at least in that moment. I was with my twin flame, 2 to 3 of my spirit guides, and 2 of the deities who were protecting me. They were all upset. My twin flames said that wasn't supposed to happen. Why did you let that happen to her? And one of my spirit guides said that they couldn't interfere at this point because I needed to experience this to reconnect with them. They were obviously upset with them because it wasn't actually a part of my soul contract, and it was completely improved by this specific spirit guide, who apparently has a pattern of doing this. One of my more responsible spirit guides turned to the deities and asked what now. They turned to me and said that I don't have to go back this time, but I still have to reincarnate and learn more before seeing my twin flame again. But it would take 2 months for us to reconnect. I said if that's how it's going to be, I would rather come back and get the lesson out of the way so I wouldn't have to leave him again. They told me they wouldn't be able to put me back in a timeline for another 2 days, so I spent the 2 days with my twin flame. I saw that the guy Brittany brought with us was actually working with the people inside of the house who opened fire on us, and he was arrested. The other 2 people were never found, or arrested. I remembered where they buried my body parts in the yard, and apparently I was the only one who died, and Brittany ran away and hid in her parents' house. Apparently her friend really hated trans people, so she was a target due to that, and I was just collateral damage because we were dating at the time. Meanwhile, in the new timeline 2 days later, I woke up on the morning we were supposed to go to the house. But apparently that friend of Brittany's wasn't staying in the hotel anymore, and we weren't even supposed to go to that house. Brittany said that never happened, but I think she remembered too, but just wanted to have another excuse to call me crazy. Brittany and I broke up in August of 2020, and I left the new apartment I was paying for in September of 2020. I took everything with me but the microwave. She got arrested for 2 days, and I moved 2 hours away. Her parents put her in a nursing home because this isn't the first time this has happened, with her using and abusing people for money, when she has none. Her car somehow got bed bugs because she was hanging out with people that had them. I wanted to include that part because it is so satisfying. Later on, 2 years later in 2022, I moved back to the town without Brittany because, we had broken up. I started connecting with my twin flame in dreams in September of 2020 as well, and I now suffer with PTSD, so going certain places and seeing certain things and even hearing certain songs. I was just out for a walk when I mistakenly walked up the same road that house alternate me was killed at was on. At the time, I didn't fully remember this because I had a lot of memories blocked due to the trauma. I started freaking out, saying no, 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 and I turned back around and went the way that I had come. I walked down to the Casey's General Store down the road and got some snacks to take my mind off of it. I blocked that memory out again because it was too much to deal with at the time. 3 years later, I'm processing my trauma and unblocking those memories that were too much for me. Thankfully, I discovered Raven's channel, so I have somewhere to share this story. My twin flame and I are doing good, by the way. Saturday, I went to a local Knights of Columbus to hear one of my favorite bands, Grand Theft Audio. I was invited to sit at a round table with 4 people, each of whom soon thereafter purchased a beverage in a plastic cup. After drinking my water, I placed the empty cup towards the center of the table lest it get confused with the others. I literally danced straight through both sets. I approached the table during the break so as to refill my cup. It wasn't where I had placed it. The 3 women who had sat at the table the entire time hadn't disposed of it, nor had a bartender snatched it. There was a cup, containing about a dozen melting ice cubes floating in the remains of water, next to the cup of wine of the man. He said it wasn't his. Even if my cup had somehow slid beside his, even if I hadn't drained it as I'd thought, the mystery of the superfluous cup remains. I never take ice in my water. Hi, I just found your channel randomly today and thought you might like my glitch in the Matrix situation. This happened 9 years ago. I was living in a unit with my son, waiting for my ex-husband to move out of my house so I could move back in. It was brand new and had all the usual modern security stuff like key lock windows, deadlocks, and an alarm on the garage door if it was attempted to be opened without the key. I needed to go to the shops, so I got my 3-year-old son ready and went to get my car keys. I'm not exactly an organized person, but I am extremely pedantic about always putting things in their place. Because losing stuff and searching is a total waste of life, and unnecessary if things are just kept where they belong. My keys were always on the kitchen island. Always. When I got home, parking my car in the garage, which then had internal entry from the garage, the first thing I would do would be to lock the car and then put the keys on the bench. But they weren't there. I asked my son if he had taken Mummy's keys. He was pretty cheeky and very intelligent, but I knew the keys were out of his reach where I kept them. But I still had to ask because there was really no other solution. He shook his head no, and I asked if he had seen them anywhere, but again, no. I looked in all the places I could have possibly left them without thinking. The vanity in the bathroom, on the bed, in the entrance door. They were nowhere. Literally nowhere. So I looked in places that they wouldn't be. Like under the bed, in the rubbish bin, in the kitchen cupboards, etc. I got a chilling feeling, but then I remembered my mom had been over earlier. She must have taken them by mistake. I called her and said, "Hey, you must have taken my keys by mistake." She looked in her bag, in her car, but no, she didn't have them. I was crying by now, thinking someone must have come into my house while I was there and just taken them. Mum drove over and we literally turned the place upside down. They were gone. My boyfriend, who lived 160 kilometers away, came up the weekend and he turned the place upside down too. They were nowhere to be seen. I spent the next month walking everywhere with my son in his pusher, or calling cabs. I didn't want to get a key cut for the dealership because it had to be towed to the dealership and a new one to be made by them. They told me it would be about $1,000. I didn't have that money. But after a month and still no keys, my mom said that she would just give me the money because I couldn't just not drive. So I called the dealership again and told them Mom had given me the money, and they said they would send a tow truck in the afternoon on the following day. The driver turned up the next day, hooked my car up to his truck. We had a laugh about the missing keys, and I went inside, leaving him to finish what he was doing before he took off. I walked into my bedroom, which was next to the driveway, and watched as he drove off with my car attached. I then suddenly thought, look on top of the wardrobe. Now, it was not a tall wardrobe, and all three of us had already looked there several times. The keys had not been there 100%. I put my hand on top of the wardrobe, and the first thing my finger hits was the keys. I'm not joking. I raced out the door to stop the towee, who wasn't happy about his time being wasted, and brought the car back in with attitude. My mom and boyfriend both couldn't believe it because we had looked there. We even stood on a chair in one of our forensic-style searches. And that's it. Now, I've got a lot more stories to tell. So much has happened to me in my 52 years on Earth, but I'll leave them for another time. I have a friend who owned an older model Chevy van. It was like a maroon color on the outside and beige on the inside. It had some design work on it. It's real nice. Every so often he'd see me walking and stop to give me a ride. This happened many times. One day he stops and offers a ride in the exact same van, except it's now an off-white outside and white inside. I say to him, "Oh, you have another van?" To which he replies that this is his only van. I then ask if he painted it, to which he said he did not, that it's always been this way. I was so confused as I'd seen and been in that van numerous times. How and why did this happen? So that, my friends, was this week's collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories. Your favorite weird, strange, and supernatural stories, paranormal stories. I don't really know how to topic these, how to label these, is the best way to put that properly. But that's how I would say. They're supernatural. They're not natural. Something's very strange about them, right? Anyways, your favorite stories about the oddities of our existence. Maybe not your favorite specifically, but your as in like the majority of my audience. Does that make sense? No? Oh. I'm not re-explaining it. Hopefully you did enjoy the stories. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button, like the video. It helps a lot with the growth of the channel and the growth of the videos, getting the videos out there. You can also subscribe if you're new to the channel and liked what you heard and want more content like this. I post typically 3 times weekly, sometimes a little less, sometimes more. I typically post more often than less. The less times typically happen if I'm having a weird week or life just gets in the way. You can also join Patreon memberships, get early access to content like this. You can listen to the podcast on other platforms such as Spotify, Audible, Pandora, Apple, any of the platforms you use for podcasts. You can also send your stories in to astheravendreams.com or astheravendreams@gmail.com. Just please put the subject of what your story is about in the subject. You can also do a super thanks, which is just a tip to the channel. Helps the channel out, helps support me further. Just a good way of supporting the channel if you want to. You can also continue being amazing, because you are. Now, Mondays, I do something called the Word of the Week. What I do? I give you a word, you take said word, and you use it in a comment on this video. On the screen right now, and several moments prior to now, during that time where I was speaking slowly to delay things a little bit, is the collection of comments that I screenshotted who used last week's word of the week. Last week's word of the week was nomenclature, which was not an easy word to use, but all of them did it, so thank you. You all are amazing. Please don't forget that you're amazing, because I would have to tell you again and again and again how amazing you are. Anyways, thank you to all of you who commented what was that accent I just accidentally used? Thank you to all of you who commented last week. Y'all are amazing, like I said. You don't ever have to do it, but you do, and I appreciate it. So, now, moving on to this week's word of the week, I wanted to do something that was connected to the seasons. Because here in the US, not in Australia, we are in the spring time. It's starting to get warmer, stuff's turning green, bugs are coming out, birds are going crazy. I have to mow the grass, spring. So, this week the word of the week is vernal. V-E-R-N-A-L, which is of, relating to, or occurring in the spring, or fresh or new, like the spring. Also means youthful. So, vernal is a fun word. Use it in a sentence on this video before I make next week's glitch video, and you'll be featured in that video. You'll be featured in that video at the end. So, again, thank you to all of you who do this. Thank you to all of you who listen. And I hope you know that I love y'all. Hope you're having a great week. Hope I see you again soon, but till then, remember that you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. And don't forget it. Until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.